Chapter 18, Great Suffering in Jerusalem. In the previous chapter, Paul received an information from James, who sent servants to tell him that it was a must for him to come to Jerusalem right away. The Pharisees had a request. They would leave the Christians at peace if they could bring Paul to Jerusalem to pay some debts with the synagogue there, the Sanhedrin. They had a plan. And as Paul was discussing with James in Jerusalem when he arrived there, he said, but James, they just want us, this is so childish. They just want to humiliate us. And in the most beautiful teaching, James reminds Jesus' words. Oh well, that's the reason why we're here. We need to die slowly. It's the dying slowly of our lives. When is it that we really die slowly? The old man will die slowly inside of our hearts. Is it possible that we can actually express it? Which parts of us are giving way to the new person, to the new self inside of us? Let's brainstorm on it. Either by talking about it with someone who is next to you right now, or by writing it down, or either by using some artistic tools like crayons and coloring pencils to draw the expression of what it would be to the dying slowly of these old patterns inside of us. In that discussion with James, Paul realizes, yes, you're right, James. I will give in because it's for a greater purpose than myself. And when he was talking about these things with James, he looked at James in a different way, because he heard this voice saying, go reconcile with your enemy. James and Paul, for all the longest time in this venture, they never got along, because one was bringing the teachings to the Gentiles, the other one was keeping it close to the Jews. But they had their roles, as James explained to Paul. And Emmanuel tells us that for the first time, Paul looked at James in a most different way, with appreciation. And in that teaching, we get to not only know, but learn how beautiful it is, maturity. Because the Damascus convert, as Emmanuel says, now saw the son of a field in a different light. His graying hair, his wrinkled and gaunt face, he spoke of arduous and incessant work. He now understood that life demands understanding more than knowledge. He presumed to have known the Galilean apostle based on his own psychological analysis, and yet he came to the conclusion that only at that moment did he really understand him in the light of the title bestowed upon him. A parenthesis for us in our lives. We keep forgetting that every person in our lives, in life in general, is a child of God. Everybody is being called for a specific task and role in the universe, as we learn in Spiritism. Incarnation is for this purpose, so we can fulfill the role that God entrusted us, besides learning and getting out of our simplicity and ignorance. Then, why do we despise each other's roles, and why we try to take other people's roles as well? Here is Paul for the first time understanding that James had his role. And the most beautiful thing, this insight that life demands understanding more than knowledge. Our titles will not do for us what our understanding will bring us regarding this social intelligence, as Daniel Goleman suggests to us. There is a social intelligence that is acquired beyond the titles that we can acquire in a life. And Paul also realized about it. So he gave in to that sacrifice. But, you know, the demand, the price was high. And you read this book because, you know, 70 plus pages in a chapter. It's impossible to describe everything in 10 minutes. So we would recommend that at each and every chapter that we talk about, that you go there, read the chapter, and then we together can reflect on the most important highlights. In this highlight, we learned that the suffering was great. But then, why did Jesus allow it to happen to him? How many people say, oh, if I'm suffering, I'm being punished? No, it's a test. And our tests will be an example for someone else. So if God allows the suffering, it's because there is a learning. It's not because of punishment. There is a step, another step towards transformation. And this is what in Spiritism we learn. In the stairway of transformation, there is not only the first step, which is repentance. When Paul, before he was Paul, Saul, he repented. He also atoned and then had to repair. But these things don't happen linearly. They will happen simultaneously at different times. So here is Paul himself facing the stoning, and he looks around and he's at the very place where he stoned Stephen. And he sees the coincidences. That's what we call atonement. Some people call it expiation, although this word is out of use, but it's a correlate to atonement. This expiation or atonement is when we recognize the suffering and we are aware of the suffering. Because some people are suffering, they are not aware. He was aware. That's why he was atoning. And he recognizes even in the name of the rabbi there, Ananias, the man who he was persecuting once, but not the very Ananias. He says, is it a coincidence? No. He says, no, I know it is the way that I need to realign my inner conscience. He suffers, but his life is saved. The Romans observe that something is off with the Jews that are trying to push this man out of his life. He's imprisoned. And in prison, so many beautiful things happen. And there, he finally has an opportunity to teach to higher levels at the society at the time. And he has this promise from the spirits that he needs to go to Rome. And he goes. He says, Caesar will be judging me because I am a Roman citizen. And he's pushed to go to Rome. And that's the journey, the final journey, the third and final journey, which we'll see in this next chapter. But before we go there, we'll leave you with this reflection, major reflection in this text. The best witness is in dying slowly, day by day, for the victory of his cause. Meditating on this, we prepare for chapter 19.